Hi, I'm Jim Masters from CityLife International Church here in Sheffield, and we've had a phenomenal time this weekend with our great pastor from Lee Gateway Church in London, and he taught us on leadership. I've known Nick for almost way over 30 years. He's a seasonal pastor, and I've always tapped into him for advice and wisdom. And today he spoke about down the line of purifying the church, keeping our hands clean, and the message was just an amazing message to today. So I'm going to ask him some questions about his life and when he started off in the ministry. So Nick, how did you start off in the ministry?
Wow, that's a massive question, Jim. I think I've always had this sense of call. It's very little. I mean, Formerly, I became a youth leader, as we call them back, because this is last century, Jim. You and I are talking last century. I can't believe that, but there we are. Yeah. I guess I was about 18. I joined a youth committee, and then became, together with a friend of mine who you would know, the leaders in Hounslow in West London in a youth group. But from as long as I can remember, I just had this innate sense of the call of God to ministry. Wow, okay. I remember I did a little part-time sort of evening job, and a friend of mine was with me, and he says, "I want to be famous when I grow up." And he said, "What?" And I reflected on his statement, and I was thinking, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" And I just knew, even from then, I would have been about 13.
Wow. Okay.
I just said, I want to serve God and help people.
Wow.
And that's been kind of a mission statement all my life. So it was very hard then to pursue any other kind of career. I worked in industry for 10 years, and it was very privileged. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but I just knew this is just a stopgap until it opened up.
So you were a youth. I know you were a youth leader because that's when we met. Yeah. I was a youth pastor, a leader in a Baptist church, and we connected then. But then you went on to running the church that you were brought up in. Is that right?
I did.
So how did that transition?
Well, I guess I asked.
Wow. Okay.
I remember I was a youth leader, and I realised my secular job and my commitments as a youth leader were just overlapping more. So I approached the church and asked if they would take me on staff part-time. And outside of the senior pastor, the first time they had taken somebody on payroll, but they agreed to take me on part-time. And 18 months into that, kind of the lead elder pastor then, Peter, he approached me and said, "Nick, we'd like you to come and lead the team of our elders here in Hounslow." Okay. So I guess I would have been about late 20s, 28, 29.
So these are the guys you grew up with. Obviously, they're much, much senior to you. How did you feel being now the person who was to lead them instead of them leading you?
See, that's really interesting, Jim. So I knew it was right to do what I did. I had a conviction about that. And, God was helping me formulate, my leadership journey and that. But all of the rest of the team were all my dad's age, who was also on the team. So that was interesting to do that, and I guess in one sense I was very much a part of the team, but it was right at the start of my leadership journey, and that thing was still formational for me. I think what worked is because I knew them; they'd known me since I was born.
Right.
There was a lot of cover around me and Debbie, my wife. But looking back now, I've learned so much since then about leading that God has taken me on the journey of, which has been important.
Yeah. So you went to obviously Dagenham, and I remember I went to one of the conferences and Steve Hill was there.
Yes.
And I remember your church was a certain size, but I know after that conference something had happened to your church.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit about that. It was a revival time almost.
So going to Dagenham again, that was it wasn't a whim thing. God very clearly, we always operated like that. We went to Dagenham in 1999. Wow. And around about 2003-04, just trying to get my dates right, the church celebrated its 75th birthday, and part of that was this evangelistic campaign with Steve Hill, which was much bigger than our church was then. I guess our church was running at 250, maybe 300 then. And I worked alongside Ken Williamson, who was our senior. We call him senior pastor. He was the leader, and I was the pastor. We had fun with that terminology. And but he always felt that God had placed upon him the mandate to grow the church to a significant size. So that was part of that catalyst that allowed us to grow. It put us very much on the map in people's minds. And we saw a steady growth. I remember praying at prayer meetings, and Ken would write, okay, Sunday mornings 300, Sunday nights 200, and we pray to see those numbers. When we hit them, we cross them out, 400, 200, 500. And I left. God led us from there. It was all good. It was all part of God's plan. In 2012. So I've been there 14 years, and we saw the church grow from 160 to 1,000 people.
Amazing.
I learned, Jim, I learned so much.
Yeah, you must have.
So much change, dynamic. That's where I think I really grew under, Ken's ministry and that context. So.
And now you obviously gone from being a partnership in senior leading to now leading, taking over your brother-in-law's church. That another dynamic, another change of environment and position, really. So how did you feel about that?
So again, God clearly spoke over 2 or 3 years. That was a journey, because the church in Dagenham was hugely successful. Our kids growing up there. Why would you want to leave that? And I was not content in the wrong way, but I was in good partnership with Ken. It was a good structure. But I knew God had put something else in me, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, was just an annoying itch that said, "No, God, there's something more for you to do in your leadership journey." Which is when the invitation came, and we considered that, and eventually made the move to Lee, Emmanuel Gateway in Lee, Emmanuel Church then in Lee. And it's funny, Jim, because you go there and you think you carry your currency of relationship with you, but when you move church, you don't. You kind of have to start again and build that, because pastoring is a very intimate thing, and so that was a bit of a shock for me. The culture was different. It was diverse still, probably more black majority, but churches had their own sort of family culture. And I had to learn a lot of things there, and it was quite a bumpy journey. Leadership, there's very different expectations of me, some of which I had to challenge quite strongly, and it became quite a painful journey for a season. But I knew God had called us there, and that's a big key. When God plants you somewhere, you've got to come back to what God has said. And at the times where you think, I don't really want to do this anymore, God says, well, you do what you like, but I'm not giving you permission to do that. That's your call, and I'll look after you. And I really heard God say that prophetically, and thought, no, I'm not going to give up. And eventually, God worked things so that our mandate to go into Emmanuel was very much to see the church transition. So the church was a thriving church, but of a certain generation, my generation, 50s and over predominantly. And I looked around and thought, where are the young adults, where are the young people? And I thought, it's alive now, but it's half a generation away from closure. Because if you don't invest in your young people, or you don't get ownership. And so I guess we saw over the last 5 years that whole church culture shift into the hands of younger people. We have excellent associate pastors now, Jerome and Leanne, and they, just in their 30s, they are bringing something that is seeing that evolution for the future.
So I want to just thank Nick, because I know he's, again, like I said before, he's well-seasoned minister. He's was actually born in church, and so he's been ministering all his life. And to have someone like him to come and minister has been, I would say, uplifting to our church as well. He got me into the denomination that we are in right now, and that's been totally invaluable to my life as well. And we pray that you one day will come to CityLife International, or go down to Lee to Emmanuel Gateway Church, and visit Nick over there as well. So bless you all. Thanks for watching our VT.